So you mentioned Marcy Wheeler. Just quickly, my goal is to be present when you and Marcy have a civil tea, have tea together or something. But I do think, I really like her. I know things have gotten hostile between your team and her. I think whatever this thing she did, the controversial thing that she acknowledged was controversial, where there was some source she became convinced had done something criminal. I guess she brought it to the FBI's attention. I'm sure that was in good faith. I'm sure I still don't know what it was, but I'm sure she thought it was something serious and it was her duty to do it. So if the healing has begun, your job at this point is to either say nothing or say something nice.
No. Look, I've said nicer things about Marcy over the past 3 months than she's been willing to say about me, and I'll do it again, which is like when we created The Intercept, we made a wish list of people that we wanted to hire, and her name was on like the top tier. And in fact, we did hire Marcy. We had John Cook at the time, who was the editor-in-chief. We couldn't quite come to terms with her about exactly how we would work with her, so it didn't work out, but it wasn't because of me. I thought she was exactly what The Intercept was created to do. I think that, I don't know, I think it was kind of what we were talking about before with Bernie and Julian Assange and people like that, how the exact attributes that lead you to do good things, like challenge authority, can also in some ways lead to bad. It's sort of like the universe always creates balance in all of us. So my combative personality is what led me to be willing to stand up to the NSA and the threats from the DOJ and publish Snowden documents and tell everyone to fuck off. But at the same time, maybe it makes me like not the most healing of presences in the public voice, right? So there's a balance to it. On the other hand, if you're too accommodating of everybody, then maybe you're not willing to pursue the kinds of debates that are needed. So one of the reasons I respect Marcy's work over the years is because she's so tenacious about connecting dots and finding hidden patterns, and has done that really well. Like everything, that virtue can have a downside, which is it can lead you into conspiratorial territory where you think you see things that really don't exist. And I think that's what happened in Russiagate, not in a way that destroys her voice permanently as a positive asset for our discourse, but in a way that I just think made her on the wrong side of this debate. I do think the question of her turning her own source into the FBI is a really significant story, not in terms of understanding or making judgments about Marcy herself, because for whatever reason, she still talks about it like she's the CIA director who it's the most sensitive secret in the world. And when she talked to you about it, she was like, I can't say more lest I jeopardize like she thinks she's like almost part of the Mueller team.
I kind of put her on the spot, and it's kind of an awkward situation.
I know, but it's like if you're going to publicly disclose something that significant and tell the world that you were justified in doing the one thing that journalists should never do, which is turn over your own source to the FBI, even with a subpoena, right?
Well,
journalists are expected to go to jail.
If you became convinced that a source had slaughtered 38 innocent people, you would notify authorities, right?
I would not act as a cop in my role as journalist. But if there was a situation that extreme, right, where I thought a source were misleading the public or were murdering people, and then I went to the FBI and turned in my own source and announced that I did that, I would tell the public why I did it. I would say, look, I did it because I found out that my source was murdering kids, and then unless I turned him into the FBI, he was going to continue to do it. I wouldn't be coy about it on the one hand and say, I did this thing because I found secret smoking gun evidence that as a journalist, I'm 2 years later still not going to tell you about, and let the Washington Post and journalism in general celebrate me for doing something quite extraordinary that might have a justification. But at the same time, I would say if I want to be celebrated for it, I owe the public an explanation as a journalist, especially now that the Mueller report is out, who it is I turned in, what it is that they did, and why I turned them in. And to this very day, she continues to refuse to do that. So that's the problem that I have.
I'm not sure my fostering of the healing process is going as I'd hoped. But someday, the last thing in her defense is, as far as her connecting the dots, I suspect, I haven't looked that closely, that if you look at the places where she thinks something big happened, they are the places where we really don't know, like that August meeting and so on. And who knows, but But I don't know. Anyway,
I mean, Bob, just one thing on that. It's like Bob Mueller investigated for 22 months. He had this massive team of like the most aggressive prosecutors in the world, an unlimited budget, no other cases that he was working on. And then he published this huge report. So if there's evidence in the world that's smoking gun evidence of any serious criminality on the part of Donald Trump and his close associates, you would expect either Bob Mueller to have indicted and charged them or to have included them in the report, and neither of those happened. That's what we know. There may be this other world that still remains hidden for some reason after the Mueller investigation. Of course, that anything's possible, right? But I can only talk about the evidence that we know.
Yeah, I mean, there are certain things